Hello, fellow stargazers. This is Dr. Vicky speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center. We're going to look at the astrology for the sign of Libra for the year 2024. Now, this is just a general sort of overlook of the year. It's not necessarily too specific, but it'll give you an idea of what's up for Libra. That's Libra Sun, Libra Moon, Libra Rising. If you want a more specific reading for yourself, you would need to have a personal reading. And then we can really sort of dig into what's really coming up for you for the year and maybe other stuff in your chart that you're curious about. So before we look at the astrology of the year, I've been pulling a oracle card. I'm using the Soulflower oracle deck here. And it's put out by Finhorn Press, and I always like Finhorn's stuff, actually. All right, we need a card for Libra. Now, this will be the influence for the entire year. Something to keep in mind, Libra. Of course, your sign is on the south node of the moon, so that's always a little bit of a challenge. If you want to know about that challenge, you can ask Scorpio, because they just had it. Okay, we have Columbine, which is abundance. Abundance. Okay, let me read this to you. Columbine encourages you to joyfully embrace life's bewildering array of uncertainties with a kind of confidence that doesn't require too much thought. Go with the flow and what feels right. Abundance is the knowledge and security that comes with the acceptance that all your needs are being met. All your needs are being met. That will come in handy, and we'll know why when we look at the astrology. So let's get started with that. All right. Let's share my screen. Here we go. All right. Let's make this a little bigger for all of us. Oops. All right, and we're looking at Libra. Okay, so Libra 2024. Libra is a cardinal air sign. Cardinal meaning initiating. And what does Libra initiate? Well, it initiates one of the seasons, right? It initiates the fall in the northern hemisphere, and it initiates the spring in the southern hemisphere. But also, Libra likes to initiate relationship, right? In fact, Libra is the sign where we first come into contact with the other. So we're like, oh, who's that? Are they reflecting me? What do they have that I don't have? What do I have that they don't have? What can we have together? That kind of stuff. Okay. The mantra for Libra is we are. You could also say I relate as a mantra for Libra. And the ruling planet is Venus. Venus, the planet of love. So good news, Libra. Oops, I went the wrong way. Good news, Libra. I'm on your chart. Venus does not have a retrograde station this year. In fact, Venus is the planet that goes retrograde the least. And she goes retrograde every 500 and some odd days. So it takes a while. We are going to have a Venus retrograde in 2025, but we're not going to worry about that because that's 2025. We have to make it through 2024. But of course, Mercury does have retrograde, as it always does, 3 to 4 a year. It only has 3 this year. The retrogrades that happen in Mercury this year are all happening pretty much in fire signs, especially except for the one that happens in the summer, which starts in Virgo, but then moves back into fire and spends more time in fire than it does in Earth. Mercury retrogrades are time to review, renovate, re-edit, redo, reconsider. It's the reread time, right? And so the first one happens this year on the 1st of April Fool's Day. Can't make that up, right? The universe has a sense of humor. And it goes until the 25th of April. And it starts at 28 degrees of Aries, so at the end of Aries, and goes back to 17 degrees of Aries. So that area of the chart, we have Mercury in a fire sign going over 3 times. Now, for you, that is your house of relationship, your house of relationship. And of course, it's all about relationship, isn't it? And we'll talk about why it's all about relationship as well. But we start right off with the consideration and the rethinking of relationship with Mercury there, and maybe the spirit of relationship, because Mercury is in Aries at that time. The second Mercury retrograde begins on August 5th. It starts at 4 degrees of Virgo and will retrograde back to 22 degrees of Leo. And it retrogrades from the 5th to the 28th of August before it goes direct. And then the last, and that is happening, it starts in your 12th house where Virgo's in, Virgo, where Mercury's in Virgo, then it turns retrograde, goes back into the 11th house. Mercury in Virgo in that 12th house, that little sort of like look at the 12th house. The 12th house is how we undo ourselves, and we have to Mercury in Virgo may be showing us where we sacrifice ourselves for other people that is unnecessary and not healthy for us. So that's what we could experience in that first sort of retrograde in Virgo energy. And then it moves into Leo, and then it's into that 11th house. So then you're looking at, you're rethinking maybe your relationships with your friends. Now, the interesting thing about your chart is that Libra, when you have Libra, your air houses, the third, the sixth, no, I'm sorry, your air houses, the third, the seventh, and the 11th are in fire signs. And so it's all about rethinking around the spirit of relationship and your beliefs around relationships and your maybe instincts around relationship, and your ability to self-express within your relationships. Because with Libra, sometimes you don't say anything because you don't want to create a kerfuffle of some sort. You don't really like confrontation. You would rather just sort of keep everything on an even keel, which is great unless it's affecting you in a negative way. And with the nodes, the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra, that theme is repeated. Having the South Node in your sign means that it's the karmic releasing point to a certain extent of our evolution collectively. And it's like you're at the back end of the elephant when the elephant is let's just say, releasing. So you have to make sure you step aside a little bit around that and you don't get it like full force, the releasing of relationship. But a lot of times Libra will define themselves through their relationships, and that may be their identity through their relationships, and that is something that you have to look at and perhaps let go of, so that you can, instead of being who people want you to be, you're actually just being yourself and people want you to be yourself, right? There's a difference there. All right. We have eclipses. Unfortunately, I didn't put them on this chart. I don't know. I messed it up. So we have eclipses. We have 2 eclipses, a full moon and a new moon in, let's see, when is that happening? The end of March, the beginning of April. So that's the first eclipse. That's a North Node eclipse. That's about moving forward in a new direction, even though you're terrified, perhaps. And then in the fall, let's see, we're looking at September 17th to and October 2nd. Again, we have a full moon lunar eclipse and then a new moon solar eclipse at that time. And that's happening, and that's a releasing point. So that's at the south node of the moon. at that time. So the nose getting activated in your houses of identity, I and thou, which is your whole thing, really. In a way, your whole spiel is an I and thou kind of lifetime, right? All right. We do, let's see. Mars, the planet of energy, starts the year in Sag, 28 degrees Sag, like right at the end of Sag, and then moves all the way to the 7th degree of Leo before it goes retrograde. So we do have a Mars retrograde, but it does happen late in the year. It happens on the 6th of December. And so that Mars retrograde, while it's retrograde throughout from the 6th to the end of December, it also goes into 2025. So there's a link there between 2024 and 2025 when it comes to Mars retrograde, initially in Leo and then moving back into Cancer. And so that is not really something I'm going to necessarily worry about or talk about in this, because it happens at the end of the year. Like I said, if you do the monthly taroscopes, you'll get an idea of what's going on in your chart. Excuse me. Anyway, at that time, so you can check that out at that time to get more specifics on that. Let's see. So let's look at Jupiter. Jupiter changes signs this year. It goes from Taurus, a Venus rule sign like yourself. But Jupiter's been in that house of other people's money. So maybe people have been willing to give you money for projects. But it's also the house of debt. So it could have increased your debt because you're applying yourself to something that costs money and now you owe that money. So there's that. But that has been I'm sorry, Jupiter's been in Taurus since May of 2023, goes out of Taurus May 25th of 2024, and then moves into Gemini. And Gemini is a fellow air sign. So there's more of a flow here. There's more of a challenge, so to speak. And of course, Mercury moving through the 9th house is an opportunity for you to learn something new, maybe to go on a trip, maybe to expand your horizons. Jupiter is all about expansion, and the 9th house is all about horizons and far off horizons as well. So you might find yourself taking some long distance trips that will be very educational and very helpful for your perspective on your life. Saturn is in Pisces all year. It goes from about 5 degrees it starts the year about 4 or 5 degrees of Pisces, or 4 degrees of Pisces, and moves up to 20 degrees of Pisces before it goes retrograde. And so that's the range that it's about 15 degrees that that Saturn goes through in Pisces this year. It's all in your 6th house. So you'll have to continue to monitor your health, make sure you're checking all of that. Sometimes with the Piscean energy in that house, it's a little hard to diagnose your ailments because Pisces is on that 6th house cusp, and Neptune has been there since 2011. Neptune can be confusing or it can be spiritualizing. And then that 6th house, it could be your work, it could be your health, it could be your world service. So it can either be confusing or spiritualizing, right? And if you do have like issues, physical issues, everybody wants to be healthy, but sometimes the thing that stops us in our tracks and changes the direction of our life is something that's very life changing or life threatening, right? Not to say that that's going to happen to you, but sometimes if we're not listening to the cues, it takes that for us to turn around and really evaluate what our life stands for, right? All right. Neptune, Saturn. Uranus is still in your 8th house. And of course, it's there for 7 years. The eighth house is how we relate on an emotional level. And with Uranus, it really shakes that up. And sometimes the shaking up is because of shocks and things we don't expect within our relationships, maybe betrayals, maybe you realize that and it doesn't have to just be um, romantic relationships. It can be relationships where you share money with people, which could be like a business partnership. So maybe you find out that your business partner embezzled something, or so I had a friend who built a, a very profitable. She was a woman. She built a profitable company that did engineering and architecture and all of this stuff. And one of her underlings actually stole it right out from under her and like took all her clients, and then just and she had to end up, I don't know if she actually went bankrupt at that time, but and she wasn't a Libra, wasn't that, but that's the kind of I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen to you. I'm saying that's the kind of stuff where it's like you don't see it coming with Uranus. And so you kind of have, when Uranus is in anywhere in your chart, you kind of just have to roll with the punches, so to speak, or roll with but one of the things about getting the rug pulled out from under you constantly is you become more and more aware that there's a rug under your feet, and you get a little lighter on your feet because you're like, I'm not going to roll. The rug might get pulled, but it's not going to take me down. And that takes a lot of practice. Unfortunately, you guys have had to practice. All right. Let's see. And Pluto. How could we forget dear Pluto? Well, Pluto is in the last degree of Capricorn as it starts the year. By the 20th of January, it's moved into Aquarius. It's in Aquarius until the 3rd of um, September, when it re-enters the last degree of Capricorn and stays there pretty much for about 2.5 months. So by November 20th, so September, October, November, so about a little less than 2.5 months, I think. Pluto is in that last degree of Capricorn. And then by the 20th, the birthday of the president of the US, Joe Biden, it's moved back into Aquarius, where it stays for 20 years. And we will not see Pluto in Capricorn again, unless it's in a different life. And hopefully we remember what we learned from this life, so we don't have to redo that Pluto in Capricorn since 2008. It's been quite a journey, has it not been? Pluto moves from your 4th house into your 5th house of creative self-expression and romance. So that should be interesting for 20 years. So there's some good news around the corner, but it is a transformational process, and sometimes that can be challenging. But Pluto in Aquarius does, in a way, force us to realize that we are not an island unto ourselves, right? There's a whole world that we need to navigate, and that needs to transform, and the world's voice will be heard. So it's going to be interesting times. All right. One other thing about the year, and let me just stop the share here, is that numerologically we're in an 8 year in 2024. So it's as you sow, so shall you reap. And so if you've been sowing lots of good seeds, you can expect to be reaping lots of good rewards. If you haven't been sowing good seeds, this is more like consciously sowing bad seeds, right? You're in for an upcomings, and I know that's nobody that I'm talking to here, but yeah, people will be having their comeuppance. Is that the word? I said upcomings. The other word. The other word. Mercury's not even retrograde yet. Yay! All right, well, folk. Have yourself a wonderful year. Hopefully I'll see you at my Taroscopes at the beginning of the month. I also do every morning. I'm out there in my garden, or if it's too cold or too inclement, I'll do it from inside my home. I'll try to find an interesting corner of my home, which is, it's a lot of things. And one of them is interesting, my home, as you see. And I do the daily astrologies, and that's always fun. We have a nice community in the mornings. So if you want to have a cup of whatever cup of you drink, and listen to meanderings about the stars, you can do that in the morning on my channel. Um, if you would like to know what's up for you personally, as I said, a personal reading is the best option if you can afford to do it. I try to keep my my costs for readings reasonable, or what I would consider reasonable, in relation to other astrologers and the market, so to speak. Um, so that's a great way to really dig into your chart. I use a combination of astrology, numerology, and the tree of life to get a deeper understanding, not only of who you are, which you probably already know, but perhaps where your destiny lies. So, all right, guys, have a wonderful year. I'll see you again soon. Take care. From my heart to yours, from my home to yours. Namaste.